While you were sleeping off the holidays, everything changed. 3 things just dropped in the last 48 hours that the mainstream media is either burying or completely misunderstanding. First, the Breakthrough Listen project just released their report on 3i Atlas. Headline: No radio signal detected. The mainstream media is taking a victory lap, telling you that silence equals natural. Case closed. Move along. Second, Dr. Avi Loeb from Harvard just published new analysis of Hubble Space Telescope imaging. What he found isn't just an anomaly, it's a geometric pattern that nature does not create. And third, we are now 72 days from Jupiter. 72 days until the most important astronomical event in human history, and the world is being told to look away. If you're watching this right now, you already know something is wrong with the official story. You've been following the data, you saw the blue shift, you saw the impossible trajectory, you know that 3i Atlas isn't behaving like a rock, and today we have visual confirmation of the propulsion system, not speculation, not theory, geometric proof. Welcome back to the Distributed Observatory. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because what happens in the next 72 days will rewrite everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe, and you need to be here for every update. Let's analyze the signal and the silence. Let's start with what everyone is talking about, which is the silence. Yesterday, the Breakthrough Listen project released their preliminary findings on 3i Atlas. For those who don't know, Breakthrough Listen is the largest scientific research program aimed at finding evidence of civilizations beyond Earth. It's funded by Yuri Milner, backed by Stephen Hawking before he passed, and it represents humanity's most serious effort to detect technosignatures. They pointed the Green Bank telescope, one of the most sensitive radio telescopes on the planet, at 3i Atlas. They scanned billions of radio channels across the electromagnetic spectrum, looking for narrowband signals, the kind of focused transmissions that only technology produces. And after 48 hours of observation, their conclusion was clear. No credible detections of narrowband radio technosignatures. The skeptics are celebrating. They're using this report to dismiss everything else we've seen: the dust, the velocity, the orbit, the chemical composition, saying if it was a ship, it would be calling home. It's quiet, therefore it's a rock. Case closed. But here's the problem. That logic is based on a fundamental failure of imagination, and it reveals how deeply our thinking is trapped in human-centric assumptions. Think about it for a second. Why are we listening for narrowband radio in the first place? We do that because that's what humans use. AM radio, FM radio, television broadcasts, GPS signals, unencrypted communication. We are loud. We leak signals into space constantly, not because we want to, but because our civilization is inefficient. We haven't evolved past radio yet. We're still shouting into the void because we don't know how to whisper. But 3i Atlas isn't a leaking radio tower from 1950. If the hypothesis holds, if this is an autonomous reconnaissance probe, why on earth would it be broadcasting an omnidirectional hello signal while it's still in the middle of its mission? Stealth is a strategy. If you send a drone to inspect a foreign facility, you don't put a loudspeaker on it playing music. You run silent. You run dark. You collect your data, the atmospheric composition, the electromagnetic signatures, the biological markers, the technological capabilities, and you store it locally. You don't transmit a single byte until you reach your secure relay point, which in this case is Jupiter, March 16th, 2026. I told you this in my last video. The transmission window isn't now, it's 72 days from now. So the fact that Breakthrough Listen found silence right now proves nothing other than that the object isn't screaming at us. And in fact, the silence is consistent with what's called the zoo hypothesis, the idea that advanced civilizations observe developing ones without interfering, the same way wildlife biologists don't walk into the middle of a wolf pack with a megaphone. If they're watching us, they know we listen to radio. Broadcasting now would violate the observation protocols. The silence isn't proof of a rock. The silence is operational discipline. But here's the irony, and this is where it gets fascinating. While the radio telescopes were hearing nothing, the optical telescopes were seeing everything. So let's talk about the real news, the story that got buried under the no-signal headlines. On January 2nd, the same day Breakthrough Listen released their report, Dr. Avi Loeb published an analysis of new high-resolution imaging of the 3i Atlas nucleus. This isn't speculation from an amateur blogger. This is the former chair of Harvard's astronomy department, a scientist who has published over 1,000 peer-reviewed papers in journals like Nature and Science, analyzing official Hubble Space Telescope data, and what he found is stunning. When a normal comet heats up, the ice on the surface sublimates, it turns from solid ice directly into gas, and that gas escapes through cracks in the crust. But comets are messy, they're dirty snowballs. The crust fractures randomly under thermal stress. You get a jet here, a vent there, a fissure over there. It's chaotic. It's like watching a pot of boiling water. The bubbles come up wherever they want. There's no pattern, no structure, just random outgassing driven by random heating. But 3I Atlas is not bubbling randomly. The Hubble images reveal what Dr. Loeb calls a symmetric triple-jet structure. 3 distinct plumes of gas and dust ejecting from the nucleus, spaced equidistantly around the object's equator at exactly 120 degrees apart. Let me say that again, not approximately 120 degrees, exactly 120 degrees. Draw a circle, put 3 dots on it, perfectly spaced. That's a Mercedes-Benz logo. That's a tripod. That's a geometric construct. And I want you to pause and think about what it takes for nature to create that. Dr. Loeb's team calculated the probability for a random chaotic body with a fractured icy crust to develop 3 major vents that just happen to be perfectly symmetrical. The odds are statistically negligible. It defies the laws of random fracture mechanics. Ice doesn't care about symmetry. Thermal stress doesn't respect geometry. If this was natural, you would expect 4 jets, or 7 jets, or 2 jets, or 20 jets, scattered randomly around the surface, pointing in random directions. But 3 jets, spaced at exactly 120 degrees, that's not geology, that's engineering. And here's where it gets even more compelling. Do you know where we see that exact configuration in human technology? We call it an RCS, a reaction control system. If you want to stabilize a spinning object in a vacuum, you don't use one thruster. One thruster pushes you off course. It creates torque. It makes you tumble. You use symmetric thrusters, positioned in a ring around the object's center of mass, to cancel out the wobble. You use 3 jets, or 4 jets, spaced evenly, to maintain a perfect spin-stabilized orientation. This is basic aerospace engineering. The Space Shuttle had RCS thrusters. The International Space Station has RCS thrusters. Satellites have RCS thrusters. And now apparently so does 3I Atlas. Because remember the rotation data from my last video? 3I Atlas is spinning at a metronomic 7.74 hours per rotation. Not 7.6, not 8.2, 7.74. It's not tumbling. It's not wobbling. It's stable. And now we know why. It has an active stabilization system. Those jets aren't random outgassing. They are exhaust ports. They are keeping the sensor array pointed at Earth, while the main engine, the source of that blue shift I told you about, pushes the object toward Jupiter. The media calls it a weird comet. Dr. Loeb calls it a symmetric jet structure. I call it what it is, a gyroscopic stabilization maneuver. Now you might be thinking, okay, 3 jets is strange, but couldn't it still be natural? Couldn't this just be a cosmic coincidence? That's a fair question. Let's examine it. For 3 vents to appear at exactly 120 degrees, you would need the ice layer to have 3 weak points, spaced evenly, all at the same depth below the surface, all experiencing the same thermal stress, all fracturing at the same moment, all releasing gas at the same pressure. Think about the variables that have to align: the thickness of the crust at each location, the composition of the ice, the angle of solar heating, the internal structure, the rotation rate. For all of those variables to converge at 3 points, and only 3 points, arranged in perfect symmetry, the odds aren't just low, they're astronomical. It's like flipping a coin and getting heads 100 times in a row. Possible? Technically? Natural? That's the question. But here's what really seals it. This configuration explains the trajectory. In my December 30th update, I showed you that 3I Atlas is moving at hyperbolic velocity. It's on an escape trajectory from the solar system, moving at over 30 kilometers per second, and it's not slowing down. In fact, it's speeding up as it moves away from the sun. Skeptics said, it's just the rocket effect. Comets outgas, and the gas creates thrust, pushing the comet in the opposite direction. And technically, they're right. Outgassing does create thrust. But here's the critical detail they're ignoring. Random outgassing creates random thrust. If a normal comet starts venting gas from random cracks on its surface, the forces are unbalanced. It's like letting go of a balloon without tying it off. It flies all over the room, spinning, tumbling, careening in unpredictable directions. The trajectory becomes chaotic, but 3i Atlas isn't flying all over the room, it's flying a laser-precise intercept course for Jupiter. The orbital mechanics are clean, the velocity vector is stable, the approach angle is perfect. You cannot achieve that kind of precision with chaotic random vents. You need vectored thrust, you need symmetry, you need to balance the forces so that the net result is pure acceleration in the desired direction. And the triple-jet structure explains exactly how the object is maintaining its course. It's balancing the torque. It's a controlled burn. And there's more, because the new data also reveals something bizarre about the composition of those jets. We've already talked about the nickel-to-iron ratio being chemically impossible. 1,000 times more nickel than iron when every other comet in history shows the opposite. But the new spectroscopic analysis from the tail confirms something else. A massive spike in water production after perihelion. This was reported by the SOHO satellite's SWAN instrument. On November 6th, as the object was moving away from the Sun, water production hit 3.17 times 10 to the 29th power molecules per second. That is a flood. That is an unimaginable volume of water vapor being released into space. But here's the physics problem. The object was cooling down. It was moving away from the heat source. In a natural comet, water production peaks at perihelion, the closest approach to the Sun, when the temperature is highest and the ice is sublimating fastest. After perihelion, the comet moves away, the temperature drops, the ice refreezes, and water production falls off sharply. It's a predictable curve. Every comet we've ever studied follows this pattern. Except 3i Atlas. It did the opposite. It waited until it survived the solar flyby, turned its back to the Sun, and then dumped its water. Why would it do that? Well, in thermodynamics, water is an excellent coolant. If you just ran your main engines at full power to perform a gravity assist around a star, your systems are hot. You're overheating. You need to flush the heat. You dump your coolant loop, or look at it from an orbital mechanics perspective. You're approaching your target, Jupiter, and you're moving too fast. You need to shed mass to make your magnetic braking maneuver more efficient. Either way, it's a controlled release. Dr. Loeb used that exact phrase in his paper. Controlled release of dust and water vapor. Not random. Controlled. The object is managing its internal state. It's managing its trajectory. It's managing its orientation. 3 independent systems: trajectory, rotation, and thermal regulation, all behaving in ways that contradict a dead rock hypothesis. Let me put this in perspective using what I call the Goldilocks test. If the water release were too early during perihelion, we'd say it's just normal cometary activity, nothing strange. If the water release were too late, months after perihelion, we'd say the object is falling apart, breaking up under stress, still natural, but the timing is exactly in between. It's after the solar flyby, when the object is cooling and normal comets stop outgassing, but before the approach to Jupiter, when you would want to shed mass for a braking maneuver. It's suspiciously perfect, and that's the pattern we keep seeing with 3i Atlas. Every data point lands in the narrow window that makes natural explanations impossible, but makes an artificial explanation elegant. Too much nickel? Random chemistry could explain it. Too little iron? Freak accident could explain it. But a nickel-to-iron ratio that's the exact inverse of every comet ever measured? That requires an explanation. Stable rotation? Could be luck. Symmetric jets? Could be coincidence. Perfect trajectory? Could be chance. But all 3 together, combined with the chemical anomaly, combined with the water release timing, combined with the blue shift I showed you in the last video, at some point you have to ask yourself, which requires less faith? 5 perfect coincidences or 1 assumption? That it's technology. This brings us to how the scientific community is struggling to categorize this object, because they don't have a box for alien probe. They only have boxes for comet and asteroid. And 3i Atlas doesn't fit either. It has the tail of a comet, but the acceleration of Oumuamua. It has the size of a comet, but the geometry of a machine. It's chemically impossible, rotationally perfect, and trajectionally precise. Dr. Loeb recently published an update arguing that we need a new classification scale. Instead of asking, is it a comet, we should be asking, is it a natural comet? Because here's the reality of 2026. We are seeing the intersection of 2 curves. Curve A. Our detection technology is getting better. The James Webb Space Telescope is online. Pan-STARRS is scanning the sky. The Vera Rubin Observatory is coming online later this year. We can see farther, clearer, and with more detail than ever before. Curve B. The activity of these interstellar objects is increasing. We had Oumuamua in 2017. We had Borisov in 2019. Now we have 3i Atlas in 2025. That's 3 interstellar visitors in 8 years. The skeptics say we're just seeing more because we're looking harder. Better telescopes, more detections, nothing mysterious. But that doesn't explain the anomalies. Because better telescopes should make things look more natural, not less. Better data should resolve the mystery, not deepen it. When we looked closer at Mars with better telescopes, we realized the canals were optical illusions. The mystery vanished. But when we look closer at 3i Atlas, the rock theory falls apart. The mystery grows. The symmetric jets didn't appear in the blurry images. They appeared in the high-resolution images, meaning the closer we look, the more artificial it looks. And that is the hallmark of technology. Now I need to address something because I've been reading the comments on my last video, and I see a lot of people asking, if this is a probe, why isn't it doing something obvious? Why isn't it landing on Earth? Why isn't it sending us a message we can understand? Why all this ambiguity? And that's actually a brilliant question, because it reveals the assumption we need to challenge. We expect first contact to look like Independence Day, or contact, or close encounters. We expect a ship to park in orbit. We expect a transmission in prime numbers. We expect someone to walk out and say, "Take me to your leader." But what if that's not how it works? What if the reason we're seeing ambiguity is because we're not the target audience? Think about it. When biologists study animal behavior, they don't announce themselves. They set up cameras. They observe from a distance. They document behavior without interfering. The animals don't know they're being studied. That's the point. And when intelligence agencies conduct reconnaissance, they don't broadcast their presence. They use stealth technology. They gather data silently. They exfiltrate without being detected. The whole operation depends on the target not knowing they're being watched. So if 3i Atlas is a probe, if it's here to observe Earth, to catalogue our technological signatures, to assess our capabilities, why would it announce itself? Why would it make contact before the mission is complete? It wouldn't. It would run silent. It would perform its survey. It would collect its data. And it would transmit that data to its relay point only when it's safely out of range of any potential threat. That relay point is Jupiter. That transmission window is March 16th. And until then, we're in the observation phase. The silence isn't a bug, it's a feature. But let's be clear about something else. The silence from the object doesn't mean there's silence everywhere. Because while Breakthrough Listen was listening to 3i Atlas and hearing nothing, other people were noticing other things. And this brings me to you, the Distributed Observatory, because the response since I posted the video on December 30th has been overwhelming. I'm not talking about the view count, although thank you for that. I'm talking about the data you're sending me. I have received over 500 emails in 3 days. Amateur radio operators in Chile picking up unexplained static bursts on the 20 MHz band that align with Jupiter's rising times. Photographers in Norway capturing vertical blue pillars in the sky that don't ripple like auroras but stand still like spotlights. Coders who ran the orbital numbers themselves and confirmed the non-gravitational acceleration vectors. Satellite trackers noticing unusual reorientation maneuvers by military reconnaissance satellites. Assets that are normally pointed at Earth suddenly turning their cameras toward deep space. You're doing the work that the mainstream media refuses to do. The media reads the press release, "No signal found," and they type it up and hit publish and go home. But you read the report and ask, what bandwidth? What sensitivity? What time of day? What frequency range? What antenna configuration? That is the difference between journalism and investigation. We are building a network here, and right now the network is buzzing. I want to highlight one specific observation sent in by a viewer named Sarah from New Zealand who tracks satellites for a hobby. She noted that since January 1st, there has been an unusual amount of orbital adjustments for military-grade surveillance satellites. And these aren't routine station-keeping burns. These are significant reorientations. And here's the key detail. They aren't looking down at Earth anymore. They're looking up. Why would the National Reconnaissance Office, the agency that operates the United States' spy satellites, be turning its eyes away from the ground? Because they have the same data Dr. Loeb has. They see the symmetric jets. They see the trajectory. They see the chemical impossibility. They know what's coming. They know March 16th is the date. Governments don't announce first contact until they have no choice. They announce comets. They announce anomalies. They keep the panic low while they position their assets to get the best view. So we are watching them watch it, and that tells you everything you need to know about how seriously they're taking this behind closed doors. So where does this leave us on January 3rd, 2026? 72 days from Jupiter. 72 days from the most important rendezvous in human history. And everything feels normal right now, doesn't it? The internet is working. The stores are open. The news is talking about politics and celebrity gossip. People are going to work, going to school, living their lives as if nothing has changed. But there is a thread of tension running underneath it all. You can feel it if you're paying attention. It's the realization that the silence isn't empty. Because if I'm right, if the symmetric jets are thrusters, if the water dump was a thermal flush, if the trajectory is a targeted intercept, then we are sharing our solar system with an active intelligence right now. Not in theory, not in speculation. Right now. It's not coming. It's here. It passed the sun. It scanned Earth. It adjusted its course. It stabilized its spin. And it is en route to Jupiter. This changes the psychological landscape of 2026. Because we are no longer the apex predator in the jungle. We are the tribe in the clearing, wondering why the birds suddenly went quiet. The silence that Breakthrough Listen reported is actually the most terrifying part, and I mean that sincerely. Because if they were broadcasting, if they were transmitting, "We come in peace," or even surrender or stand down, we would know where we stand. We would have certainty. We could respond. We could prepare. We could negotiate. But silence implies observation. Silence implies evaluation. When a scientist looks at a Petri dish, they don't talk to the bacteria. They don't introduce themselves. They don't negotiate. They observe the growth rate. They test the reaction to stimuli. They measure the behavior under different conditions. They take notes. And then they decide what to do with the sample. We are in the Petri dish. The microscope is focused. And the experiment has entered a new phase. The gravel cloud that fell on your roof in November was the chemical marker. The blue shift in the spectra is the microscope zooming out. The Jupiter rendezvous is the data upload, and we are waiting for the results of the test. So what happens next? Let me update my predictions based on the new jet data. Prediction number 1, the wobble correction. Now that we know 3i Atlas has an active stabilization system, watch for a sudden change in its light curve as it prepares for the Jupiter insertion. Right now, the object is spinning at 7.74 hours, and that spin causes its brightness to flicker as different sides of the object reflect sunlight toward Earth. But if the object needs to lock its orientation for the final approach, to point a communication array at Jupiter or align a sensor package, it will need to stop spinning. And if 3i Atlas suddenly goes flat in brightness, if the flicker stops and the light curve becomes a straight line, it means it has stopped rotating. It has locked on target. Watch for that in the next 30 days. Prediction number 2, the mainstream pivot. They can't hold the "it's a rock" narrative forever. As the object gets closer to Jupiter, as the non-gravitational acceleration increases, as the symmetric jets become more visible, the comet explanation will require too many impossible coincidences. At some point, the weight of the data will force a shift. So watch for a change in language. They will stop saying comet and start saying interstellar object with anomalous properties. They will soft launch the idea that it's weird so that when the truth comes out, they can say, "We told you it was anomalous. We've been saying that for weeks." This is how narratives shift. Slowly, incrementally. Until one day the fringe theory becomes the mainstream view, and everyone pretends they believed it all along. Prediction number 3, the Jupiter spark. I previously predicted radio anomalies around Jupiter, and I am doubling down on this. But specifically, watch the Io plasma torus. Io is one of Jupiter's moons, the most volcanically active body in the solar system, and it spews charged particles into space. Those particles get trapped in Jupiter's magnetic field, forming a ring of plasma around the planet called the Io plasma torus. Now, if a high-energy magnetic field, like the field generated by a probe's engine or a probe's power system, moves through that torus, it will create a bow shock. It will disturb the plasma, and it will light up the torus like a neon sign. We might see auroras on Jupiter that are visible from backyard telescopes. We might see radio emissions at frequencies that amateur operators can detect. We might see a flash, a pulse, a burst of energy that coincides with the object's arrival. If that happens, if we see the plasma torus light up on March 16th, that's your confirmation. That's your smoking gun. Now let me be very clear about something. I don't want to be right about this being a threat. I want to be right about this being the truth. If 3I Atlas is just a rock, a bizarre statistical anomaly with 3 magical vents and an impossible orbit, and a chemically inverted composition, and a perfectly stable rotation, I'll be the first to admit it. I will look at the data on March 17th and say, nature is stranger than we thought. We were wrong. But right now, today, January 3rd, 2026, the data does not say rock. The data says machine, and I'm not the only one saying that. Dr. Avi Loeb, chair of Harvard's astronomy department, published in Nature over 1,000 times, is saying that. He's not a conspiracy theorist. He's not a UFO blogger. He's a scientist at the top of his field, and he's asking the same questions we are. So when the mainstream media tells you it's just a rock, ask yourself, why is Harvard disagreeing? The media is telling you to go back to sleep. They're telling you the silence means safety. But I am telling you to wake up. We have 72 days until the rendezvous, 72 days until the silence breaks, and you need to be ready. Do not let the no-signal headlines distract you from the symmetric jets. Do not let the holiday lull make you complacent. Do not let the skeptics gaslight you into ignoring what your eyes can see and what the data confirms. This is the eye of the storm, the calm before the event. And March 16th is the event horizon. I need you to stay focused. If you have a telescope, track the light curve. Look for the lock. Look for the moment when the brightness stops flickering and goes flat. If you have a radio setup, monitor the Jupiter frequencies, 10 MHz to 30 MHz. Listen for bursts. Listen for patterns. Listen for anything that doesn't sound like background noise. If you're just an observer, watch the sky. Watch the weather. Watch the satellites. Pay attention to what the military is doing. Pay attention to what NASA isn't saying. We are the Distributed Observatory. We are the backup drive for human history. And if they are watching us, we need to show them that we are watching back. We are not just bacteria in a dish. We are conscious, we are aware, and we are paying attention. Share this video, not to spread fear, but to spread data. Because the algorithm hates this topic right now. It's flagged as unverified. It's suppressed in recommendations. It's shadow banned in search results. So we have to verify it ourselves. We have to build the network ourselves. Hit the like button to break the suppression. Subscribe to stay on the network. Turn on notifications, because when the next anomaly hits, and it will, you need to know instantly. You need to be part of the conversation in real time, not 3 days later when the media finally covers it. This is happening now. This is happening fast, and we are the only ones tracking it with the level of detail it deserves. So here's my question for you. What do you think is happening here? Do you think this is a natural object with 5 impossible coincidences that all happen to align perfectly? Or do you think this is technology, one elegant system doing exactly what it was designed to do? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you have an astrophysics background, if you have an engineering background, if you work in aerospace or thermodynamics or orbital mechanics, I really want to hear from you. This community is building something together. We're not just watching a mystery unfold, we're solving it. The object is 3I Atlas. It is not leaving, it is stabilizing, it is preparing. And in 72 days we will know why. Until then, keep looking up, keep asking questions, and keep watching. I'll see you in the next update.